Hello and welcome to Regional Roundtable. I'm Will Stewart, President of the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber of Commerce and your host. Regional Roundtable is a program of the Greater Derry Londonderry Chamber aimed at exploring issues of regional economic development importance. My guest today is Dan Scanlon of Colliers International. Welcome to Regional Roundtable, Dan.
Thanks for having me here, Will.
Great. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit, first of all, about yourself and about Colliers. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. Well, I noticed the title of your program, Regional Roundtable. I like to refer to myself as a regional citizen. I've lived in Derry, Londonderry for 18 years, Manchester, and I've lived in Auburn for the last 11 years or so. So I really do consider myself more of a regional citizen than an individual town. I've been involved in commercial real estate since 2000. Mm-hmm. I started my practice here in the Derry Londonderry area, worked here for about 6 years, and then in 2006 moved up to the Manchester market, and I've been up there ever since. Colliers used to be Grubb & Ellis, but is now Colliers. So we're part of a global commercial real estate firm, and it's a good arrangement. Very, very happy with where I am, and really enjoying myself in the line of work that I do.
Well, great, and again, thank you for being here. I know you said you're based out of Manchester these days, but I know you still do a lot of business here as a regional citizen. I know you've done some recent deals here in Derry as well. Can you tell us, just give us a little bit of perspective? What's going on right now in the commercial real estate market here in the Greater Derry Londonderry region?
I think that since the recession, there's been what I refer to as a flight to quality. There were a lot of high quality, let's call it Class A space that was available in the market. And there was an opportunity for businesses to upgrade the space that they had, move out of lower level space into better quality space at really good rates. And what's happened as a result of that is that now that the economy has in general recovered, we're actually finding a shortage of available space. I do a lot of work in the airport area in Londonderry, and it's amazing how few buildings we have available for industrial businesses. I'm working on a transaction right now where a business moved from the Manchester side of the airport, they were in about 20,000 square feet. They moved to the Manchester side of the airport, to the Londonderry side, into about 50,000 square feet. We've had all kinds of interest in the 20,000 square feet that they vacated, and in fact had sort of a bidding war going on for that space.
Wow.
Ironically, a Londonderry business is moving over to that space, but it's not so much what town they're in, it's the kind of space that they need just happens to be available. And the business that's moving has been looking for the last 3 or 4 years to find something like this.
Wow.
So in that space, we're finding a real shortage of inventory. We're experiencing the same kind of thing in the Class A office market in the greater Manchester area. There's not much of that in Londonderry, but Manchester and Bedford, same kind of thing. The quality space got filled up over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's very hard now to, number one, find the space, and number two, when I'm working on behalf of a business as a tenant, difficult to find them the kind of deal that we might have been able to get for them 2 or 3 years ago. It was a tenant/buyer's market for a long time. I think we've come back at least to equilibrium, and some people feel that the market has shifted back a little bit in favor of landlords.
Well, it sounds almost like a case of, classic case of supply and demand.
That's exactly what it is.
So do you see any building or construction taking place to build new office space or industrial space?
Well, that's been kind of the irony of this whole situation. As I mentioned, there's a lack of inventory. So let's take, for example, a business looking for a 20 to 30,000 square foot industrial building. There aren't that many out there, and the business needs to do something. They're growing. So there are good positive things happening out there economically. Businesses are growing, adding people, adding business. They need new space. So I'll tell them, I can't find you a building, but we have land, dirt as we call it, available in the area. I'll sell you some dirt and you can put up a building. Oh, no, I can't do that. It's too expensive to build. So we've seen very, very, very little what we call ground up construction. There's some obvious exceptions to that you're aware of, and we may be talking about up in the airport area with the large buildings that are being built, but those by far are the exception to the rule. Very, very little ground-up construction.
Wow.
At some point, the pain that a business is feeling will be great enough that they will go ahead and build something. But we're just not there yet. And the cost to build makes it too prohibitive for an investor to buy the dirt and put up a building and lease it, because the lease rates would have to be higher than what I think the market can absorb right now.
So nobody's going to go out and build on spec?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you were referring, I think, a few moments ago to Pettingill Road, and correct me if I'm wrong, 1,000 acres being opened up to development.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that project, again, located in Londonderry, right near the airport.
Yeah.
But of course, it's something I think that will have a regional impact for sure.
Absolutely. It's really a great success story. Here you have land that sat unused for many, many years, and roughly 1,000 acres, all of it in Londonderry. And the issue was getting access to the land. The scope of the site, the land, the project was really just too big for an individual developer to go ahead and put in the road network and the other infrastructure that was necessary. So the first thing that happened was the airport access road, the Raymond-Wazurek Drive that comes in from the Everett Turnpike. That was sort of the start of the development of this area. It wasn't enough because Wazurek Drive simply had some access points into the 1,000 acres. It didn't create the kind of road network that was required to really access those sites.
But you could see it and envision it. Almost that little stub there, I think you could drive by and see.
Oh, yeah.
Which certainly helped. I think a lot of people see that it could become a reality.
Yes. And as you probably know, several years ago, there were charrettes that were done, basically brainstorming sessions that were held with all kinds of professionals and the citizens in Londonderry to think through what that site could be like. I don't think it's worked out the way that it was imagined, because the charrettes really envisioned several smaller buildings and different types of uses. I think it even envisioned hotels, convention centers, maybe some apartments, retail. But what happened is some very, very large users came along that needed massive tracts in order to put up the buildings that they needed for their business at that location. So location was really the initial driver.
Being near the airport or the highway, or?
I think it was the highway system. To the best of my knowledge, the businesses that, the 3 buildings that have gone up in the airport area, and I'll go through them individually, for the most part, they really don't use the airport. They don't use the cargo component of the airport. It's primarily ground transportation that services them. So thus the reason to be close to the Everett Turnpike, 93, and you can really go wherever you want to from Manchester. But there haven't been any land tracts of the size that they need to put up these buildings. So the smaller building, the FedEx ground building, is about 300,000 square feet. In the FedEx world, the ground shipment world, timing is a real key element. So they can move things quickly, and that means money for them. The other facility over there is a Pratt Whitney facility. And it too is an interesting story. Pratt Whitney wanted to be in the area from a logistical point of view. So a national warehouse developer selected the site with Pratt Whitney in tow as a tenant. So this was not a speculative build. Pratt Whitney will handle components for jet engines at this facility. That's what they do. But they are outsourcing the logistics. They're using a third-party logistics provider, and it happens to be UPS. So it's not going to be a UPS facility, it's a Pratt Whitney facility, but UPS will be doing the work over there. That building is over 600,000 square feet. So both of those sites need large tracts of land, and frankly, there isn't a whole lot of land left in that area, but what has resulted is Pettingill Road getting built. The town of Londonderry created a TIF district, a tax increment financing district, to help generate some funds to build Pettingill Road. The developers of the two facilities we talked about contributed most of the money to build Pettingill Road, and as I understand it from the town of Londonderry, the public cost ended up being about $250,000, which was a far cry from the $12 million or so that
right.
The town had been looking for many, many years to build it on its own. It's not going to be the 4-lane boulevard that was envisioned some time ago, but it's going to be a very serviceable road, and we're all going to be able to actually drive that road before this year is out.
Nice.
So it's just a great story to see the vision and then to see that vision realized the way it has been. And to me, this is a real win for Londonderry, because you're increasing the tax base, you're creating more jobs, and you're not putting a tremendous strain on town services in doing so.
Like we like to say here at the Chamber too, just because a facility is in one town, doesn't mean that town is the only town that benefits. Yes, they get the tax revenues that come along with that, but you mentioned higher employment. Well, all those people are living not just in Londonderry, for example, but probably Derry, Auburn, Chester, Wyndham, Manchester, Bedford.
Sure.
So it's seems to me to be it's a rising tide that really does lift all boats.
I think it's a great benefit for the region.
Speaking of other towns, I know it's Londonderry gets talked a lot about these days. A lot of hot stuff going on over there. But we're seeing some movement in projects and some positive news elsewhere across the region. I understand that an educational software tech firm for Manchester called Intellitech will be relocating to Derry sometime soon, and I understand you have a little bit of knowledge about that.
Well, just a little bit.
Okay.
A partner of mine worked with Intellitech for some time, trying to find them a location. Mm-hmm. They've been up on East Industrial Drive in Manchester for many years. Mm-hmm. At one point, they actually shrunk the footprint that they had up there, but they realized that they needed to grow again. It's an international company. I can't recall where the headquarters is. It's in Europe. Mm-hmm. And they decided that they wanted to have a larger facility. I know that they looked at a lot of buildings over a long period of time. Initially, they were looking to lease something, but finally they decided they really wanted to buy a building that projected an image that was consistent with their company. Mm-hmm. So they chose the Merrimack Tile building up on Shenito Road. Mm-hmm. Merrimack Tile reduced its operations. They have another facility up in Hooksett that they transferred things to, and the building became available. So I think it's a great land for Derry to have a company like that. For the most part, these are very good jobs, and I think they'll be a very good corporate citizen.
Nice. 50 some odd jobs, was it?
I don't recall the number, but they definitely needed a building of that size. And frankly, I don't believe that they were targeted on Derry as their location. I think, mm-hmm. Again, this is a story of lack of inventory. They were looking for a long time. They looked in the greater Manchester market, and of course I include Londonderry and Derry in that market, mm-hmm. and simply couldn't find a building that met their needs. And when this became available, and it was actually what we call an off-market opportunity. There was never a for sale sign on that property. My colleague happened to hear about it, got in touch with the owner, and was able to arrange the transaction. We like to do those under the radar type deals, mm-hmm. But that was what was available, and they had to move quickly on it, or they probably would still be in their search.
This second time you've brought up kind of a lack of inventory of commercial industrial space here in our region. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether to look at that. It's a challenge, I think, but perhaps an opportunity as well. What other challenges do you see facing this region with regard to space and as it regards economic development? Mm. What's holding us back, do you think?
Well, I think in terms of economic development, the issue that concerns me the most is the cost of electricity. We have a problem, mm-hmm. and we need to address that problem in some way. And when I say we, it's not just the commercial community. It's the entire community. It's the entire region. It's the state. In fact, it's all of New England. Our electric rates are much higher than the rest of the country, and to me, it's simply a matter of supply. The mm-hmm. demand is here. but we don't have the kind of supply that we need. So we're seeing the battles being waged right now. I'm sure there's many well-meaning people that are opposed to lines being in their town or in their neighborhood. It's sort of the same issue to me as the Northern Pass issue is. But the reality is that we're losing power generation facilities throughout New England. We're all part of a network, the ISO network, and somehow we have to replace the sources of power.
We've lost, what, 2 in the past, how many months? It's been...
It's very significant. I forget the percentage amount, but it's a serious amount, a dangerous amount, and we've got to replace that. And if we can't convince businesses from other parts of the country who might be interested in coming here that they can get power at rates that they can get elsewhere, that's going to put us at a very serious disadvantage. And I think that's the primary deterrent at the moment to really large-scale development. Now, we were able to land FedEx, the Pratt Whitney facility, and others, and I know that there's a couple of construction projects that are on the drawing board, but you have to wonder how many more have crossed off New Hampshire or New England before even getting here because of that issue.
That's what scares me, is that you just don't know how many people just automatically write us off, because of that.
One of my favorite expressions is that the market speaks when it comes to commercial real estate. And so I think that there's a lot of homework and research that's being done outside of our market by really smart people. It may be on demographics, it may be on logistics, but it's certainly going to be on power and other infrastructure items. And to me, it's very likely that they're making judgments, like we were saying, before they call or visit. That is not a place that we're interested in going.
It's, we've heard it at the Chamber from our members as being one of their top concerns as well. And like you said, the larger users, I mean, if we're talking advanced manufacturing or things like that, they're very energy intensive industries, and they need the power, and that's not an insignificant source of funds they're going to have to pay. I was actually up at the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission yesterday. They were having a hearing looking at, I forget their phrase, ameliorating wholesale power challenges, something to that effect. And he was up there advocating on behalf of the Derry Londonderry business community, saying that look, we need to do something. What we're doing now, saying no to everything, is not going to solve our problems.
I think an additional challenge we have is our demographics. I'm an example. I'm a boomer. I'm going to be working a while longer. I'm not ready to hang it up just yet. But again, especially in the advanced manufacturing, in the manufacturing world in general, manufacturing is probably the biggest component of New Hampshire's economy. I don't think many people realize that. There's a perception that manufacturing was offshored several years ago to Asia or South America, and the reality is that there's an awful lot of manufacturing going on in this country, and right up the street in the airport area, there's a lot up there. In fact, if you drive around the airport area, you'll see sandwich boards out in front of some of the businesses that says "Help Wanted." So I think that the challenge is to convince younger people that manufacturing is not the way that it was for their grandfathers or beyond that. These are not jobs where you stand at an assembly line with a hammer. These jobs require a fair amount of education, training. They pay very well. They're clean.